Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 268 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the second of the podcast. There's a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and I am joined tonight by the greatest hostess in the world, Erin Paulette. How you doing, Erin?
I've had a day, and there's a story attached to it. And before I get into that, we should probably mention that this is sort of a hybrid roundtable, but with segments. And the reason for that is I'm horribly unprepared. So I don't know if you want me to launch into my story now, or you want to introduce the other contributors, or what? How you want to do this?
Let's introduce the Peanut Gallery first, and then we'll get the hell out of the way.
We are Dodd.
We are Legion.
Now,
We are many.
I'm really disappointed. You had a perfect opportunity to go kneel before Dodd, and you didn't.
I was leading up to that, but
Erin has coined the term Dodd, which means David and Oddball.
hello.
Hello.
I'm not going to introduce which one is which because it doesn't matter.
We're not interchangeable.
We are all individuals.
Yes. Thank you.
So, Erin, please tell us why we are gathered today.
Wrong holiday.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here together to talk about this thing called life. Okay, so I have spent...
Don't talk to me about life.
So I have spent most of the day at the local intensive care unit with my mother. My mother is doing all right, but she had a STEMI, STEMI, something myocardial infarction. Myocardial infarction is the technical term for she had a heart attack. She is doing better. She's resting as comfortably as you can be. While in an ICU, they had a stent put in, and you know the chest X-rays look good. The EKG looks good. So I'm not worried about her. So you don't need to be worried as well. But so here's how my day went, and you need to listen to the whole thing. So I get up and. I think everyone who listens here knows how much of a morning person I'm not. And
They're with you.
Honestly, if I have to wake up in the single digits, something has gone wrong. Because just my natural sleep cycle is 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. And so I get up and I go to the bathroom, just like everyone does first thing in the morning, and there's a Post-it note on the door saying, "Gone to ER." And I go, oh, okay. So
It can't be good.
No. So I take a look at Mom's car, and Mom's car is in the driveway. Okay, she called an ambulance. This is serious. Now, again, I'm still trying to process the trauma of being awake, and so I'm making my coffee, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? Because if I get in the car and go there, I mean, I don't know when she left. Might have just left. They might try and call the house. So I've just about decided, okay, I'm going to sit here and wait for someone to call me. Either she'll call me to come pick her up or the doctor or whatever. And I've just taken my first few sips of coffee and I get a call from the emergency room and, the young man identifies himself and, well, I wanted to talk to you about your mother. Has someone contacted you? No. Okay, well, here's what happens. And that's how I found out she was in the ICU, and so I got dressed, and I went to go see her. Now, some of you may be wondering, why is it that Mom didn't wake me up to
My
tell
wife asked that very question.
Okay, so I will answer that by telling you the story she told me, and hopefully you will understand through illustration. So, Mom was out in the yard around 8 o'clock or whatever, just, doing some weeding and gardening. And she started feeling a very intense pain in her chest. And it wasn't going away. It wasn't like gas. And so she went inside. By the time she got inside, it was so terrible that she had to lie down just to sort of, cope with things. And she didn't have the strength to move or to call out or things like that. And I'm glad she found the strength, because if she didn't, she probably would have died there, and that would have been a very horrible thing for me to witness. So potential TMI for people who are kind of squicky here. While she is there in this intense pain, she soils herself, both urine and feces. So she was really in a lot of pain.
That's not an uncommon reaction.
So I've been told, look, I'm not judging. The point being is she has soiled herself. She is now embarrassed. My mother is a proper Southern lady. And honestly, I think that embarrassment is what gave her the impetus to get up, because before she calls 911, she gets up, she goes into the bathroom, she cleans herself up, wipes the feces and urine off of her, changes her clothes. Then and only then does she call 911. And I asked her, and I said, Mom, why? These paramedics or EMTs or whatever the proper term is now, they've seen this and so much worse. And she basically, her answer is a combination of, it would be rude and I didn't want to put them through that. So, again, people whose literal job it is to deal with bodily fluids, she doesn't want to inconvenience. And so she will clean herself up before calling 911. So when you factor that in, and that's how she treats strangers, obviously she's going to say, well, I don't want to wake Erin up. She's sleeping, and there's really nothing she can do anyway, and I've called the ambulance, so I'll just go to the ER and have the ER people call Erin, once she gets up at like 10 o'clock.
So, as someone who has gone on EMT calls, I am not an EMT, but I was one of the guys at the fire department who was capable of carrying the gear bags for them. That is not as uncommon as people listening might think. For someone to have an incident like that at home, soil themselves, and clean themselves up before calling 911. Happily, your mother's outcome was better. We had one where the person called us from the bathroom floor because they had done something or had a health incident, went to the bathroom to clean themselves up, and fell again and hurt themselves worse.
Yeah.
Now, then there was the guy who fell in his backyard and impaled himself on a pipe.
Ew.
And pulled himself off the pipe and dragged himself up the path to meet us in the driveway.
Oh, I'm sure it was a gravel path, wasn't it?
It was a gravel with steps.
Of course.
And so he got a pretty good distance because the house was on the lake. So the house is up above the lake, and he was doing something down by the dock when he fell and impaled himself. And he got a good distance up that path towards the driveway by the time we got there and stopped him.
What was it, a through and through, or was it just...
No, he went on the pipe and he pulled himself off the pipe.
Okay, what I'm saying is, did the pipe go out his back?
No, it went in his bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, he basically fell backwards on the pipe and pretty much sat on it.
Okay.
And he's got he's survived well, but he's got a nice dimple in his cheek.
So anyway, Weer'd, the reason I wanted to tell you that, first of all, it's slightly an amusing story, and it's an insight into my mom, but, pre-show you were saying, good on your mother for calling and not toughing it out, and it was like, well...
Yes and no.
I mean, she didn't tough it out, but she had that Southern lady pride of, no, she's going to be clean and respectable when the EMTs come. So,
I will still stick by the, yes, it is ill-advised in a life and death incident such as this to be doing anything that would delay getting yourself into the ER and getting the treatment that you need. And so, on one hand, I totally empathize with what she's doing. And I also will say, hey, guess what? Your mom is resting comfortably and you haven't been talking about like greater life issues, and you're here talking. You're here sitting with us. So it sounds like for a bad event as a heart attack is. She made the very, very best of it with her action. And I will just say that there are lots and lots of people who have something bad happen or have an issue where they're deteriorating in health or something, and they let pride get in the way.
Oh yeah.
And they decide that, they can tough it out or they can do it. And I'm so glad that your mom did not do that, because it is extremely common. And I'll just say that out to everybody who's listening. Yeah. If you're feeling a little bit funny, go get checked out. I had pericarditis once, which resulted in the dissociative chest pain. My right arm and my throat were very, very uncomfortable while that was going on. And one evening I pulled a muscle while lifting weights, and then went to bed and woke up with pain in my right arm and a little bit of discomfort in my neck. And like I ended up just like waking up my wife and going, I might have pulled, I was just lifting weights. I might have pulled a muscle, but I also might be having a heart attack. She's like, let's get you to the ER. And so, yeah, there is absolutely no shame in it. And yeah, I went to the ER. It sucks. I screwed myself out of a good night's sleep, but I got checked out and I was fine. And so I praise your mom for getting her butt to the hospital and making it so this was not something far worse.
Oh yeah. But again, I wanted to tell the story so that people weren't going, why did you wake up to a note? Why didn't your mom wake you up? And I was like, because she wanted me to get my beauty sleep. That's mom for you. So yeah, because of that, I'm really not read in on most of the show. I listened to David's segment because I'm the one who brought it to people's attention, and I know the segments that the articles, the topics that I submitted, but I know half the show at best, which is why I asked David and Dodd to come in just to help make up for my lack of knowledge, because I'm somewhere between minimal and hot garbage right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you're half prepared and we're half assed, so
There you go.
I don't know if you'll need to edit that, Weer'd.
It's all good. But as far as I will have to say that I want to just chime in just because it's 2A related, and I'm telling everyone is I ended up ordering. I was running low on 45 ACP, and everyone who knows me knows that 45 ACP might be my favorite cartridge in the whole wide world.
Just let me interrupt you for a second with the
Yes.
I'm telling everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You said that intentionally that way to reference the old joke, right?
That is referencing the old joke. Yes.
Okay.
Why are you telling me? I'm telling everyone. I decided to all the talk on Phoenix Arms that we've been talking about on the show, but let me go look at their website. I want to see how much they charge for ammo, and they have essentially bulk rates for ammo that the price starts going down the more you order. And when you order up to what is it? It's like I think 8 packets is the maximum ones, and that's 200. That's 250 rounds each. And so I said, you know what? It gets really affordable. And I said, you know what? I like what these guys are doing. I'm going to throw them a bunch of money. And so I went on the website and I realized there's a little chat window on their website. And so I just typed into it, "Hey, I'm planning on making an order to Massachusetts. Where should I send my FFL information so that you guys can send it to us?" Because Massachusetts is a bunch of jerks to online ammo sellers, and I have a CNR FFL, which means that I can that's good enough for most people to send ammo to my house. And I think the person responded fairly quickly, and I believe when they heard send my FFL, they heard send the information on my gun shop up the street, as opposed to no, the FFL that's attached to my house. But they said, "Oh no, you just need to send your Massachusetts a picture of your Massachusetts permit, and that'll be more than enough." And I realized, oh, this is very, very nice, because that is the absolute letter of the law. Most people go a little step further just because Massachusetts has two types of permits. They have the FID, which is generally the hunting permit / the 18 to 21 year old permit, because essentially it doesn't allow you to own handguns or large capacity weapons. And so because of that, there is like kind of a legal gray area of if I was buying a case of 45 ACP and I only had the FID, yes, technically I could have a PCC that shoots 45 ACP, but I might be buying it for a handgun, and that would be bad. Either way, dumb gun laws are dumb, but they don't play that way. They would have been just fine with any Massachusetts gun owner with their permit to send it. So, but anyone here who's listening for the state of Massachusetts and does not have a CNR FFL and likes the idea of mail ordering ammo, Phoenix Ammo will send stuff to your door with just so long as you send them the picture of your LTC.
And anyone who lives in Maine and doesn't have a CNR should look into that as well. Love you, Ryan.
Well played. Thank you, David. But yeah, so I got the ammo. It looks great. I have been insanely busy, and so therefore I have not had a chance to test this stuff out, but it looks really, really good. I got it for a really, really good price, and I got really, really tired lugging the two boxes that I got down the stairs and putting the ammo away.
Aww.
So
sounds like you need to get more regular exercise. Work on that core.
Yeah. This, I don't know how much these things weighed, but it's 45 ACP's heavy girl.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I recently got my 1,000 rounds of 5.56 and 2 500 round boxes, and that's not light either.
No.
Yeah. I guess I can tell the story that I went more in depth in what will be a blooper reel, especially since Erin hasn't heard it. I'm sure she'll get a chuckle out of it. So this was my 44th birthday, so I decided to splurge and buy myself a Desert Eagle in 44 Magnum. And I finally got out to test it out, and it works perfectly, except for one slight issue, which is operator induced, where I have a tendency not to hold onto it tight enough, so it flips a rather good amount, to the point that, since it takes the cycle rate of the slide is so slow
and long, bring a lunch.
By the time it actually ejects the round, the pistol is actually pointing skyward, and I'm staring at the brass, and I was actually pelting myself in the face with the spent brass of my own gun.
I wonder what that brass colored thing coming right at me was. Then it hit me.
Oh, no. It was I could see it's like, oh, that's the brass that's still that's still being extracted from the gun. Smack, ow.
So is the 44 Desert Eagle the same basic form factor as the 50 Action Express?
Yes, it is. In fact, I could, if I wanted to, I could buy a 50 AE barrel and magazine, and that's all that's needed to swap it over to the 50.
Well, I think you should.
Yeah, we all agree. As far as I understand it, there are 3 generations, basically, or iterations of Desert Eagle.
Yes.
There's the original 357 Magnum frame size, which was only 357. Then there was the second frame size, which could take 357, but also 41 and 44. And then the most recent one, which is slightly bigger, or 50 Action Express or any of the smaller ones. Though I don't know if they still do 357 all that much.
They still do 357 and for my understanding, when they came out with the 44 mag and the 40 and the 41, that was its own frame.
Yeah.
The 41 and 44, you couldn't go down to 357.
You could. Oh, okay. I misunderstood the documentation I've seen.
That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but and that generation, the slide was actually marked 44/41.
So has anyone made a Desert Eagle 350 joke yet?
Well,
I did suggest he get it hydro dipped with $2 bills.
There is that. And there is that weird. There's that weird, like 4.6 something caliber that they invented for the.
Oh yes,
recently. But yeah, it is a highly amusing gun, and I'm glad I bought it. And it's one of those things that I think just about every gun owner, either secretly or publicly, has always kind of wanted a Desert Eagle. And knowing full well that this is a ridiculous gun. That
it's 429 Desert Eagle.
429. Okay.
I mean, I don't think I've ever wanted one because it looks ridiculously massive. I didn't know the kind of recoil from 50 AE, but I imagined it would be pretty bad. And then at one point, I actually had the opportunity to handle a Deagle. I don't remember if it was in 357, 44, or 50, but it was one of those.
In modern times, it doesn't matter. They've simplified it down to just one frame now.
Okay, and it was just oof. I knew it was going to be heavy, but it was still heavier than I expected. It's sort of like when you're in chemistry class and you've got like a beaker or whatever of mercury, and you forget how high the specific gravity is. It's like, oh, it's liquid. It'll be oof. And it was just, oh, dear God, I'm holding a brick.
And in your dainty little hands.
Yes.
Of course, with me, I actually, the first shot, I stubbed my trigger finger on the magazine release button because I let my finger get too wrapped around the trigger because I have obnoxiously large hands.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it does make the Desert Eagle look human-sized.
I gotta imagine that Erin holding on to a Desert Eagle with her dainty little hobbit hands is gonna be like picking up a wiffle ball bat by the wrong end.
It was a shovel.
It was pretty amusing.
Well, it is similar to, I remember at the first blog shoot, Erin, you tried to shoot my Model 13, which has a grip on it that is the proper size for my hand, and just I can't reach the trigger in double action mode.
Well, I also remember we shot someone's bolt action 50 cal, and it was you picked it up and you unsupported held and fired it. I wanted to give it a try. I think I maybe got the muzzle an inch off the ground, but there was no way I could get that thing horizontal.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, the Deagle wasn't that bad because it was obviously smaller and lighter, but it was still that degree of oof.
It's like the meme of the dryer knob with the guy saying oof.
Yes.
Yes. And I just looked up. There were the three frame styles. There was the Mark I, the Mark 7, and the Mark 19. The Mark I was just 357. The Mark 7 was 357, 41, and then 357 and 44 with 41 added. And then the Mark 19 is everybody in the pool. And they have three different barrel lengths. There's the standard 6-inch barrel, that what it comes with, but you can also get a 10 3/4 and a 14 3/4 inch barrel.
Why are the front sights on the barrel and not the slide?
Because the slide is actually, if you look at the picture that David posted, the slide is that bottom part that that kind of looks like the frame. The barrel is not enclosed at all by the slide.
Yeah, imagine a Beretta 92, but cut all the way to the front of the barrel.
Yeah, with no front strap on it.
I see what I'm doing. Okay, I thought that doohickey was like a mounting point. No, that's actually the crown or whatever the term is.
Yeah, Weer'd's picture makes it clearer.
Yeah.
Behold an AR-18.
Yeah.
We were joking around and realizing in full gun geekery that the gun that has an action most similar to the Desert Eagle, being that it's a short recoil piston operated gun with a rotating bolt, is the AR-18.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the AR-180. The AR-18 was select fire.
That's true.
I mean, I just assumed that it was a 2-part slide and the barrel was inside. I didn't realize that front part was actually the barrel.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Okay.
It is such a mean gun.
A picture with a NAA mini revolver for scale for you there.
I'm surprised you didn't post the picture with a pocket knife for scale.
Yes. Hold on.
It is a pocket knife.
There we go. Yes, with pocket knife for scale. For the listeners at home, the pocket knife in question is the Cold Steel Espada XL,
which is about the same length front to when folded as the Desert Eagle from muzzle to hammer.
I mean, it's
my mind immediately sees it as the they made a Desert Eagle in 25 ACP.
I mean,
pretty much.
The Espada is a pocket knife in as much as you can put it in a cargo pocket.
No, you can you can put it in the front pocket of men's jeans.
You can put it in the seat back tray pocket of an airliner.
Now, like 2 inches of it is above where the pocket clip ends, but and funny story that I heard about the designer of the Desert Eagle. He apparently built a custom one that has a 22 barrel in it.
Oh, that's
and
what millimeters?
and he actually took a normal Desert Eagle magazine and just kind of glued a 22 magazine inside it.
So kind of like what they did with some of the Webleys.
But
it is the cylinder in the barrel.
Yeah,
or just a cylinder.
But it is very much counterbored at the muzzle, so it looks like you've got like so it looks like it's actually larger than 50 cal. And apparently he very much enjoyed taking it to the range and seeing people go, "Holy crap, what the hell is that?" And then pop, pop, pop. Wait, what? And he had to use an aluminum slide to get the slide lighted up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
How are you doing, David?
All right. Well, David, do you have anything to add on before we dive into the news?
Well, today was Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement in Judaism. So I did actually fast because even though I'm not really supposed to for health reasons, I felt it was very important since it was my mother's yahrzeit, the anniversary of her death on the Jewish calendar on Friday, the anniversary of her death on Sunday, and Yom Kippur was one of her favorite holidays. So I wanted to, kind of do all that. Oh, and earlier in the week was my father's birthday, so it's one of the reasons I haven't been sleeping. So yeah, it all just kind of came washing over like a tide coming in. But my wife and I broke fast with my family's tradition, which was bagels and lox with a nice slice of red onion on there.
Cool.
I do love that. Capers or no? No
capers. I'd have to buy a jar of capers, and for the half a dozen per bagel, I'd then have to make chicken piccata. And, well, I mean, that's not a hardship, but it's somewhat involved.
The Chef John from foodwishes.com's got a great piccata recipe. I found it very easy.
White wine?
Yes.
I'd have to talk my wife out of some white wine because I have a feeling white grape juice would not work.
It might be all right, and if you've got a very very light bodied red, that'll also work.
Change the color.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that would be.
well, I use my buddy's Concord grape wine, and that stuff doesn't stain anything.
They're right, Concord.
Yeah, but either way, yeah, I've used that in instances where it calls for white wine, but I've got this bottle open, and I don't want it going bad on me.
One of my friends years ago, they made this family recipe stew, and they would buy, the glass gallon jugs of red wine with a screw top.
Oh yeah, the Carlo Rossi.
Whatever it was, they would buy that, and they would put like 2 cups of it in this stew, which they cooked for about 6 hours.
Okay.
But it was like, well, couldn't you buy like, I don't know, a smaller bottle or a different one? I was like, no, this is what my grandpa used. This is the only thing I'm going to use. Okay, but nobody drinks that crap, and once it's opened, it starts to go. It's like, don't care.
Oh, and they were so, because I know that there was an Alton Brown chili recipe where he specifically calls for a 16-ounce bottle of beer to dumped into the chili, and then one teaspoon from 16 ounces plus 1 teaspoon. And it shows him in the show. He dumps 1 bottle of beer into the chili, and then he opens a second bottle of beer and pours the tiny teaspoon into it and dumps it out.
Drinks the other
and
bottle.
Then just goes, oh, well, now I've got an open beer in my hand.
Can't put it to waste.
Right.
Exactly. So I didn't know if they're buying the jug of doom because you know what, we like the jug of doom.
As far as I know, other than that stew and maybe 1 or 2 other dishes, no one actually drank it.
Yeah, my dad enjoyed the jug of doom.
We've already talked about your dad and some of his interesting habits, like bathroom cleaning.
I will just say that one on one of the Portuguese fishing boats that I was on, they decided to have a huge feast. There was like dudes coming down off the dock and all that. They were grilling up sardines and they had like some salads and Portuguese cornbread and all that stuff. And so eating all that, and they pulled out the jug of the gallon jug of doom, and I had myself a healthy 8-ounce little plastic cup of this wine, and which I'd been out to sea for probably 10, 11 days at that point in time. So that wine hit me like a Mack truck. And so I had that one glass and called it good, and, had paperwork and stuff to do and finished my food and all that. And so I was, by the time I got to my truck, I was good enough to drive. But before I got home, and this was just in New Bedford, so I was less than an hour drive home. I was so hungover. It was like instant hangover.
Yep.
All right. Well, shall we dive into these? This is another big news day. We were contemplating doing a round table, but we also had segments that specifically, we had David's segment that needs to be done. Yeah, thank you, David, for submitting that segment. But it's not that time yet.
Well,
there are rules.
That's future ACP's problem.
Yes. So I want to specifically start off with Hunter Biden, and I specifically picked this Slate article. Hunter Biden's indictment has put gun rights groups in an awkward bind. So this is from someone who is not sympathetic to our cause, and is essentially pointing out, it's kind of awkward that these gun owners that are so opposed to gun laws are saying, yeah, go after Hunter Biden for this, for this violation because obviously he's under indictment for tax evasion of some money that may or may not have come from some very interesting sources, and buying a gun while he was an active user of illegal substances. And
he did not buy that gun in a face-to-face transaction. He bought it from an FFL, which means he filled out a 4473, which means he lied on a federal form.
Mm-hmm.
which is a crime.
Yes. And so essentially everyone's cheering on this because number one, yeah, he broke the law, enforced the law. And that's one of the big things that, I mean, I've talked about it a lot is we've got this Brady bill and the 4473 and nobody does anything with it. The only thing it's good for is if the person is actually denied, then
Oh, well, that's it.
it's fine. But if anybody lies on it, does anything to try to defeat the 4473, nothing is done about this.
Yeah, I think I read a few years back when I was doing some research on it, so this is not the most recent data, that approximately 5 or so percent of denials, etc., are actually investigated. And when you consider the vast number of 4473s and NICS checks that are run, 5% is a drop. So, but it would be interesting to see if there are more recent numbers and if that's changed.
I doubt it.
Yeah, most likely not.
But either way,
during 2020 through 2022, how many NICS checks were there a month?
About a million or so.
Pardon?
I want to say like about a million or... Oh, okay, the number a million jumps to mind. So it was either a million or either it was a million more than normal.
It was millions.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, then the difference between that and pre-COVID was the COVID scare added an additional million per month. I was asked that question a lot, and that stuck in my mind. Not completely, obviously, because I'm scattered, but yeah.
And given the number of, as I've been saying, for lack of a better term, non-traditional gun owners that were coming in here, people that may be left of center, people that may have not been supporters of the Second Amendment, may not be supporters of the Second Amendment, who are now interested in firearms ownership, people in urban areas, et cetera, et cetera. And these are people who may not be as steeped in the laws. I mean, granted, I know a ton of people that, just that failed a NICS check because they didn't realize that marijuana they were caught with in college was going to stick around for the rest of their lives, and things like that. So the possibility that there were more NICS denials just because these people didn't realize the scope of prohibited persons is a possibility as well. But either way, I will say there is any number of shenanigans that can happen between now and this gets ruled on by the judge. And
you come to judge.
Yeah. And so, this really, anything can happen on this, but I will say my personal fantasy is that there has been talk that Hunter Biden's team is going to use the NYSERPA v. Bruen case as his defense, in that there is no history or tradition of denying people firearms because they have used something illegally, because there would be, if someone showed up for militia practice and they were hammered drunk, they might turn them away. They might even jail them for going about drunkenly with a firearm, but that would not be a lifelong prohibition. And there was all sorts of you could just buy opium over the counter back then. So yeah, the idea that Hunter's activities would be completely prohibitive per the thoughts of the founding fathers is absolutely unrealistic. So it'd be interesting to have a case where Hunter Biden's name, Biden, becomes synonymous with Heller or McDonald or NYSERPA.
Yep.
I'm okay with
if
this.
I may, I would like to toss in a quote from the great thinker H.L. Mencken on this topic.
Sure.
The trouble with fighting for human freedom is that one spends most of one's time defending scoundrels.
Mm-hmm.
There are actually a few recent cases where the courts have declared that hitting someone for possession with when they had a history of drug use is unconstitutional. Now, of course, those cases are still dealing with appeals, et cetera, so it's still a mess. But and there's also the interesting thing of the number of anti-gunners that have tried to excuse it away as, well, nobody actually gets charged with this stuff. It's just a political manhunt or witch hunt.
I mean, the way I look at it is that I think we can all agree that Hunter is not going to do jail time. If he does do jail time, it's going to be minimal and very, very cushy.
Right.
And this isn't specifically because he is a Biden. It's because he is the immediate blood relative of a sitting president. And, this would happen if there was a Republican in office. And, let's say one of George W. Bush's daughters, decided to buy a gun and was stinking drunk at the time, it's just the way real politic works. You don't piss off your boss by prosecuting your boss's kid for anything less than caught red-handed, with the bloody murder weapon, the corpse still warm. And so, he's not going to do any sort of significant time for this. That's just the reality of the situation. So by all means, let's get a gain from this. Yeah, if we can use Hunter Biden to kill that rule and to weaken the power of the ATF, I'm all for it.
Totally.
Of course, I do have to point out that I believe the news agencies were all over when Jenna Bush got caught for underage drinking.
Yes. I don't think that she saw any actual charges other than in the court of public opinion.
And that is one where it's just underage drinking. You have to have really screwed up for the judicial system to really care about that.
Or you're under a microscope.
Yeah.
Which, during the Bush Jr. administration, everything any of them did was.
But yeah,
do you remember when one of Obama's daughters was caught smoking marijuana in college?
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't, because the press gave it a good leaving alone.
Yeah. But I am absolutely with Weer'd that I would love to see, I've heard rumors that Biden's defense team is planning on going with this is unconstitutional argument, and I would love to see his name go down as at least one of the cases that got a firearms restriction declared unconstitutional and stricken from the books.
Yep. I would also like to see USAG Garland have to fight for prosecution against Hunter Biden.
That's why I suspect that shenanigans will happen.
Oh, it'll just go away. Yeah, absolutely, it'll go away. But that would be. I would not be surprised if it goes away. I would be surprised if it doesn't go away. Let me put it that way.
Well, interestingly, they tried to make it go away once already, and it didn't.
When they tried to make it go away once already, wasn't that the deal that would include protection from any prosecution for future incidents?
Correct.
Yeah, so they overplayed their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
If they had just done a simple, let's pretend this one incident never happened, they probably would have gotten away with it. If it wasn't for those meddling kids.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if after this gets brushed away, if in some future case, somebody uses the Biden example as their lawyer uses that as part of their defense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Judge, are you saying there are two classes of people in this country? I mean, we all know there are, at least two. But Judge, are you saying there are two classes of people in this country, ones who can get away with this type of things and ones who get punished for doing the same thing? Especially if it was an election year for that judge. So it'll be interesting regardless. But I did, since we were talking about the NICS checks, I did put in the show notes a link to the year, month, day records of NICS checks. So people can look for a particular time period all the way up to, it's actually got August of 2023 in there. But it is regularly updated. And it goes all the way back to 1998, November of 98, the first year NICS went live. So it's interesting. You can take a look and see the patterns.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'm trying to remember if it was David or Oddball that mentioned defending the rights of scoundrels.
That was me, quoting H.L. Mencken.
Yes, and speaking of scoundrels, this is a story I only want to touch on lightly because it gets dangerously close to the partisan politics we try to avoid here. But I really
on the other hand, when a politician of any stripe does something clearly illegal, we call them out on it. We don't care what party they are.
Well, yes, and the point that I wanted to make was overall, this is not a Second Amendment story, but New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez has been indicted on bribery charges, and he had like tons and tons of cash in his home and gold bullion and all sorts of other stuff. I haven't dug through this story enough to know. I was listening to the radio today and I was hearing all sorts of stuff, but I was in and out of the house all day off and on. So I missed a bunch, but
yeah, but I mean, there's, what was it? 39-page indictment was unsealed in Manhattan federal court against his wife. They're named in the indictment and charged with 3 counts. So it's not like there's this whole pile of counts, but there's a whole pile of evidence, including the bribes, cash, gold bars, payment towards mortgage, compensation for low or no-show jobs, luxury vehicle, and other things of value.
Okay, but
And
what does
in
this have to do with the Second Amendment?
This man has not ever seen a gun law that he didn't like.
mm-hmm.
He has been an active enemy of the Second Amendment.
Including, he submitted multiple bills. I don't know if any of them have actually made it into law, but and of course has helped spearhead a lot of the gun laws in New Jersey, in the state of New Jersey. I really wanted to do it as pure character assassination of the type of people who would be so much against your Second Amendment rights. So many of them are rules for me and not for thee, and are more than willing to break the law when it is convenient and beneficial.
Okay, let me try and drag this back on track here. Because, all right, so Bob Menendez, I mean, he's no Leland Yee by any means. I mean, just for lack of a shrimp boy in this sordid tale.
Give a quick recap of Leland Yee, just in case someone missed that story.
Okay, so Leland Yee was a
State member of Congress,
member of Congress from California, and was super duper into gun control. And when he was arrested on not just selling guns to organized crime like the triads, but literally, like trafficking guns, racketeering, money laundering. Yeah.
And not just like pistols and rifles. There were heavy weapons in the stuff that he was trafficking, like machine guns and rocket launchers and mortars. Oh my.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to make a link here, so it's not just pure character assassination, but there's an article here from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, written by Larry Keane, and the link here is that, much like Leland Yee, Senator Menendez also loves international firearm trade. And so despite being domestically anti-gun, he is very much in favor of selling guns to Egypt. And I haven't delved deeply into this because, as you were talking about it, I was searching, trying to find a link here. And it's somewhere between playing fast and loose with international regulations or at the very least, or at worst, breaking them.
Yeah.
And so
One thing I would
there will be a link to this in the show notes for people who want to dive deeper. But my point here is that it's that same level of stinkiness of no, you civilians can't have pistols and rifles, but we're definitely going to sell automatic weapons and sniper rifles to a foreign government, which may or may not be legal. If it is legal, it's funny. It's sort of the equivalent of insider trading. So, rules for thee and not
Congress
for
has
me.
also made themselves immune to.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would like to toss in there with the NPR article that Weer'd linked in the show notes is that both Senator Menendez and the author of the article mention how important it is to respect innocent until proven guilty, yet these same people have no trouble yelling guilty and still proven innocent when it's not their ox being gored. So there's hypocrisy on top of that.
All right. Well, next...
Moving right along.
Yeah,
Okay, let me... No, I found a thing. Let me just tie a bow on it.
Good, yes.
Okay, so Senator Menendez allegedly provided non-public information to intermediary businesses, after which one businessman texted an Egyptian official stating, "The ban on small arms and ammunition to Egypt has been lifted. That means sales can begin. That will include sniper rifles, among other articles." So, there you go. That's the link.
Yep.
Actually, does New Jersey have a 50 caliber ban? Trying to remember. I know California does.
I know they've proposed one. I don't know if they actually ever passed it.
Yeah, but either way, he's being accused of being a dirty guy. We're not going to say that he absolutely did all of these things, but I just wanted to put that down because
50 caliber rifles. New Jersey prohibits the possession of destructive devices, which include any center fire rifle that is capable of firing a 50 BMG cartridge. That's from Giffords.
Wow. Well, that says a lot. And thanks for digging that up, Erin.
Mm-hmm. No problem.
Yeah, I read it earlier when I first got it through, and then I've just been focusing on like the gold bars.
It's hard not to.
Mm-hmm. And so moving on to the next story. This one is one that I actually was very, very interested in because anyone's been following the show, I have been absolutely reveling in the fact that overall the country is becoming more and more pro-gun, and violent crime levels are dropping, even though numbers of armed people are going up, which goes against the standard anti-gun boilerplate that more guns equal more crime,
as opposed to John Lott's well-titled book.
Yep, more guns, less crime.
And there are places where there are cities where violent crime and crime in general has skyrocketed.
Yes.
But those places are places like San Francisco,
New York, Chicago. Although I'm not sure if we could tell if Chicago's crime rate skyrocketed.
Chicago's crime rate has gone just completely ballistic.
I mean, I think their crime rate skyrocketed in the 70s, and it's reached Pluto. Which is still a planet.
Yes, it is.
I'm of mixed feelings about Pluto, but yeah. So this is an article by Jeff Asher, and he's got a little statement. Essentially, the title is, did violence actually surge in 2022? Which has been.
No, he didn't say violence. He specifically calls out gun violence.
Yes, that's true.
Because other violence isn't as violent.
Correct. And he's got two facts listed here that are facts. There's good evidence that shootings fell in 2022 in most big cities with available data. The big city data matches what we see in the gun violence archive data, which points to a 5% drop in fatal and non-fatal victims, not including suicide. And then, he's got some. Essentially, he's picking apart the studies that are saying that 2022 had a massive surge in gun violence.
While he does point out that violent crime in general does seem to have gone up by quite a bit.
Yes. And I believe that the FBI numbers also agree with the general increase in violent crime. I haven't done a deep dive on that. But considering the past 3 years, I don't think that would surprise anybody to learn that crime was up.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, you've got places like San Francisco and Portland and Seattle and Chicago and the other places where they have done the whole either actually go through with defunding the police or making it making the atmosphere a lot more hostile towards police.
In addition to that, a number of those places have also gone with emptying the prisons.
Right.
So they're releasing criminals. New York did a no bail thing, and the results have been as expected.
And also essentially decriminalizing shoplifting, and in some cases, certain levels of assault.
Yes. Yeah. Simple assault in several locations is no longer a crime. I wonder if the State Department will put out a warning not to go to those places like they do with foreign countries.
Like they do with Mexico?
And some of the European countries over time.
Yep.
Which, I mean, the whole thing with the discussion we had earlier about the massive increase in the NICS background checks, and this did gun violence actually surge in 2022, leads nicely into the next topic, I think.
I think it does. Do you want to take it away?
Sure. So this is from a post or a tweet or a Facebook thing based on in California, Governor Newsom saying that there is a severe problem caused by firearm license holders in California. And the post is from the Fresno County Sheriff's Office and says, "We ran a check of gun-related crimes committed by our CCW holders. In the past 5 years, we had one offense under PC 171B-A1. This means the person brought a gun into a local or state building where a public meeting was being held, and doing so was prohibited." Context. We have about 17,000 active CCW permits in Fresno County. Let's just say that each one carried their gun each day for 5 years straight. That translates into just over 31 million opportunities for something to be done wrong. So we have had 1 in 31 million. All our applicants go through a thorough background check, and those issued permits have proven to be some of the most responsible, law-abiding people in California. Which any of us who have been involved in the defense of the Second Amendment, and?
Well, and there is the bit of any state, especially California, but California is one of the ones that's definitely this way. But any state, it's kind of self-selecting in that if you have a carry permit, that means you have jumped through, in some cases, not insignificant hoops to legally do what you're wanting to do.
Nods in former New Yorker.
And I mean, even in the state of Tennessee, which is pretty darn gun friendly.
Yeah, and the permit system is better than most, but still has room for improvement.
Right,
but it's nowhere at the level of those other states we talk about.
Right, and I know that at least one of the folks on this podcast has had an officer at least once ask to see their carry permit, because it was in my front yard. But out of how many days have you carried, and how many times have you run into a cop asking to see your carry permit?
Oh, that wasn't a rhetorical question? Twice. And then there are the various traffic stops where I just hand it over without being asked.
Right.
And
What?
I've carried for 20 years now, most of that in New York and the last 6.5 or so in Tennessee. And I never had an officer ask to see my permit. Like Erin, there were times when I had a traffic stop where I informed.
Right. Heck,
But
the traffic stop that I had in Oak Ridge, I said, "Oh, and you're probably going to want to see my carry permit," and the cop said, "Yeah, no, that's fine."
we're good.
Just okay.
Basically, at least in this part of Tennessee, in Anderson County specifically, if you offer, that's good enough.
Right.
You have made the case to the officer that you're a good guy.
But if you're actually concealed carrying, chances are, when you walk out that day, nobody's going to know, and you're not going to have a cop walk up and go, "Hey, are you carrying? I'm going to have to pat you down and check for your gun," unless if you're doing something shady, like being black and walking around in New York City. But I digress.
Also, is I believe the Terry stop is still legal in Tennessee.
I believe you're correct. I don't think it's really been tested recently. But...
but it's what is that saying? The people call the attention of the police when it's stupid people doing stupid things in stupid places, or something like that. And as you said, most firearm owners, much less permit holders, have a vested interest in not being stupid, doing stupid, in stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst most gun owners are going to do is they're going to stick something personal and crazy. Hello, is this thing on?
Yeah, no, that's all great. I was just making sure you were done. No, it was very, 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 very wonderfully said. And
Speaking of carry permits,
yes. And CC holders, CCW holders.
Yes, yeah. This was a tweet essentially back at going after Gavin Newsom and his.
That was one I just did.
Yeah. Okay.
We're moving on to the New Jersey
State,
one.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Come on,
okay.
keep up, Weer'd.
Yes. we jumped around. And yeah.
Did we?
We really didn't.
No.
Weer'd's jumping around in his own head, though.
Oh, I saw we added the other stuff. We're adding to the show notes as we're going along. But yes.
Yep.
We've had some good court cases.
Yes. And NYSERPA versus Bruen is the gift that continues to keep on giving.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So New Jersey, along with New York, pretty much. I mean, New York was almost instantly after NYSERPA v. Bruen.
We'll be talking about that around my segment.
Yeah, went through and they essentially devised a law that would make it so that, okay, if we have to issue your concealed carry permit, we will just make it completely worthless. There, are you happy now?
And the answer is no.
Yeah, no, we were not happy now. And guess what? The courts agreed with us.
And I would like to say we often talk about with California, we talk about the blessings on Judge Benitez, or some people call him Saint Benitez. I think we also need to start sending some accolades to Judge Marie Bum of the New Jersey Federal District Court.
Yes.
Because she's also doing good work. And that's because basically, like several other states that Weer'd mentioned, after NYSERPA versus Bruen threw out may issue, and it has to be shall issue, New Jersey revised their carry training requirements, which included qualification shooting out to 25 yards.
Well, I think you're burying the lead just a little bit. I can't quite find the quote, but they were essentially holding concealed carriers to a standard equal to or in excess of retired police officers.
Yes, that's what I was leading up to with the 25 yards part. Because, yeah, actually, I don't know if their active duty police still have to do 25-yard proficiency shooting. But Yeah, it was all sorts of additional requirements, drawing from a holster, firing one-handed, firing off-handed. I mean, it was basically at least, if not greater than the active duty New Jersey police requirements, and far beyond the retired officers who can carry under LEOSA. And they have now reduced that. They eliminated any testing requirements for kneeling, one-handed shooting, timed fire, and retention drills. They've also completely eliminated any demonstration of shooting proficiency at 25 yards, requiring instead shooting from 3, 5, 7, 10, and 15. And my favorite part I saw, was it this article or another one, was that, but they also removed the part about things like handcuffs and arrest that were actually part of the concealed carry weapon training. But people with an existing carry license in Jersey still have to recertify, and that was supposed to be by October 1st, but it's extended to December 31st. Yeah, there it is. New Jersey also eliminated from the use of force instructional materials content unrelated to right to carry, including provisions related to citizens' arrest and use of handcuffs. So that was in the carry training, along with the 25-yard shooting qualification. So it's better, but there's still a lot of room for improvement in New Jersey. But it's something that the folks in Jersey can at least take some comfort in, I would like to think.
So at the very least, New Jersey has, I don't know if it's seen the light, seen the error of its ways, or it's just, yeah, you know what? We see how these lawsuits are going, and we're not going to push our luck. We're just going to revise rather than lose money.
Or they're just tired of getting spanked and losing face.
You don't get spanked on your face.
Yes, you do. It's called a slap.
Or a face spank, as we like to call it here.
Is that like when you're talking out your front butt?
Yes. But yeah, and then the other one we talked about, St. Benitez. Well, well, St. Benitez has struck again. Essentially, he ruled that California's magazine ban was unconstitutional, and then it was being appealed to the Supreme Court. NYSERPA v. Bruen happened, because I believe the first ruling was before the Bruen ruling was set down.
It was overturned by the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah. So rather
then appealed to the Supreme Court.
Yes, and then the Supreme Court did they did it to a bunch of stuff. Is they sent the cases back with the instructions from NYSERPA in there. Yep. And
is the right term vacated?
Remanded.
In other words, we've already ruled on this, so take our ruling and apply it to this case. We have more important things to deal with.
Right. It's they vacated, I believe, is applicable. They vacated the ruling and remanded it.
Okay.
Remanded the case back to the lower court, which with SCOTUS was to the appeals court, who then turned around and sent it and remanded it back down to Benitez. And surprise, surprise, Benitez said, "Yeah, it's still unconstitutional."
My favorite quote from the article: Benitez has issued an injunction blocking enforcement of the law, but stayed his order for 10 days to give Attorney General Bob Bonta time to cry in his beer.
Yeah. So, which means that there won't be, like the previous in previous times. There's been a Freedom Week where you could go out and buy high capacity mags in California before the state filed an appeal and got a stay and all that fun stuff. And I think as amusing as the Freedom Week stuff is, I think Benitez did the correct thing in going, yeah, we all know that the state is going to appeal this to the appellate courts. I'm going to put a 10-day stay in here so the state has the chance to file it, and that way we don't have to deal with the confusing mess of oh, but I bought this magazine during the right week of the right year.
Yep.
So I'm not entirely sure if California will appeal. I mean, they probably will, but hear me out on this. So if they appeal, then it goes up to the Ninth Circuit. And the Ninth Circuit then has the choice of upholding the decision or reversing it. Now, if they uphold the decision, then it applies to all of the states in the Ninth Circuit, including Hawaii and Oregon. Oregon just passed
correct.
Measure 114. I believe Washington, maybe not at the state level, but Seattle has some. Basically, all of these.
Washington did. I know some folks
Okay.
there who've been struggling under it.
But the point being is, it'll affect all of the Ninth Circuit, not just California. Now, if the Ninth Circuit reverses and then it gets appealed back to SCOTUS, then, assuming SCOTUS hears it, and who knows, there's the very real possibility that SCOTUS could say, okay, you made us come down there. You know what? These are unconstitutional, and now magazine bans are unconstitutional for the entire nation. So there are probably lots...
Everybody just lost their magazine ban privileges.
Yeah, and so I would imagine, I don't know this, but I would imagine that there are some gun prohibition states who are telling California, sit down, shut up, you're going to ruin it for the rest of us.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Take your lumps, because if you screw this up for us, I mean, I don't know what they would do, but they'd probably, promising some sort of doom and gloom.
Right.
And
Right.
so, while I do think it's likely that California will appeal, I don't think it's a certainty.
That's a valid argument.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there is also the bit where California loves to act like it's its own nation and can do what it wants. So,
Even more than Texas, which actually was.
right. I mean, there aren't border guards at the state lines of Texas and Arizona. There are at the
Yes.
state lines of California.
Yeah, I know there are at the whatever the highway that crosses from Nevada into California. There's a checkpoint.
And California is also the state that has been getting away with coming up with its own emission laws, etc.
Mm-hmm. So that's why the petroleum distilleries have the California blend.
And why Ferrari has the California edition of a few of their vehicles. So they may press ahead, just assuming that they're going to be able to get their way.
I'm honestly not sure what to hope for.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't appeal, California is free from the magazine ban. And that's a done deal. But it's only California. If they do appeal, then the Ninth Circuit can be smart or they can be stupid. And looking at history, which is Ninth Circuit known for?
Yeah, about that.
And then if they're smart, then those however many states, including Hawaii, lose their magazine bans. Great. If they're stupid and it goes up to the Supreme, then the Supremes can be constitutional or not. And if they're not, then we're back where we started. If they are constitutional, then everybody loses their magazine bans, and we are a major step further forward.
I think what California is probably going to do is they're probably going to appeal it and hope that the Ninth Circus goes with them, and then SCOTUS just does its thing of just...
We already discussed this, try again.
We're going to ignore that and not take up the case.
Not even do a try again? We already talked about this?
Yeah. I think that's what California is gonna hope for.
So if that was the case, it would basically be back where we started?
Well, and also at this point, SCOTUS can't do the shortcut, send it back down, try again. We already discussed this. The reason why it was able to quickly remand the cases back down was because, oh, hey, we just ruled on this landmark case that seriously changed case law dealing with this subject. So there were major changes, and the courts should account for that. That won't be the case this time around.
Right. So I guess I should hope for the best. Least risky is just they don't appeal, and California is free of the magazine ban, and we move on from there.
Yeah, I definitely like to see that. I mean, just as far as get them the aggrieved parties to be able to just move on and free California of the evil magazine ban.
I will note that this is also broad enough, and citing the Second Amendment as the rationale behind it, I would argue that it would apply to all states that have magazine bans as well.
It definitely wouldn't hurt. It would help, but I mean there's the whole at the district level precedent. Precedence of a case in the district level doesn't really mean a whole lot. And then,
unless you're in that district,
right? Unless you're in that specific district, and even then, it's really at the appellate court that you start getting where case law matters, and even then, unfortunately, technically, if it happens like the arm brace stuff that's been going on in the Fifth Circuit. Won't affect any of us directly, legally speaking, but may set dominoes further down the road.
Yeah, as I constantly remind people, we did not lose these rights in a day. We're not going to get them back in a day.
Yeah.
Right.
We have to play the long game, and we have to play it smart.
Right.
Better a small win now than a potential bigger loss later.
Totally. And speaking of smart, the opposite of smart
SMRT.
The opposite of smart is dumb. And I think I want to close out the news section on a big old pile of dumb. Well, we can discuss on what the connotations of this is.
Are we talking about Vice President Harris becoming the gun czar?
That is exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I haven't even touched the stinky pile.
Yeah.
My response would probably be better suited for a mag dump anyway.
Either way, I'm of mixed feelings about this. So Joe Biden has created essentially a federal office dedicated to stopping gun violence. So Kamala Harris is the head of it, though she's really just kind of the czar of it. And in fact, it's like most offices, it's going to be headed by a bureaucrat. And that bureaucrat is, I'm trying to remember the name of the person because it wasn't someone that I was super familiar with. But it was an employee of Everytown. Let's see. Rob Wilcox let's see, was he the head of it but either way, there's Greg Jackson of the Community Justice Action Fund. Essentially, in this group, people have been appointed from known anti-gun groups.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we would point out the fact that, they've got some anti-gun groups. It would okay. I can actually see put some anti-gun lobbyists in this group to work on it, and then you put some pro-gun lobbyists in there to even them out, and then they can have kind of a little round table discussion. No, this is just an anti-gun group. So on one hand,
surprise.
It's no surprise there. That shouldn't shock anybody. But so there's nothing about this group being formed that helps us.
No.
The one thing that I will have to say is in prep for the show, I have skimmed through several press releases and skimmed the Rose Garden speech that President Biden and Vice President Harris gave. And
are you going to be fisking that for a future episode?
No, because there's a little bit here and there, but it was so empty. Like,
so it was a political speech.
I was trying to find something that would hurt us in here and something for us to beware of and something for us to look out at. And I really haven't been able to find anything. That doesn't mean that's not, I mean, it's really more of a blank slate than anything.
Yeah.
So
and it's stated that the goal of the group is to try to figure out and focus on things that the executive branch that Biden's office can do unilaterally, because they're seeing that Congress is not willing to pass meaningful anti-gun laws.
Yeah, but Biden's president. He has a gun he has a pen and a phone.
Right.
And a double-barreled shotgun
that he shoots through the door and up into the sky. Although somebody did point out in a discussion on this that when President Obama was in office, he appointed his vice president to head a special task force to combat gun violence. Who was that? Who was his VP again?
Yeah.
And well, there we go.
But yeah, so it is. It's an office that is trying to find loopholes to allow him to do things that he can't really do without Congress's permission.
Right.
When has it ever stopped a president before?
This is true. And this is, again, not a party issue.
Oh, I mean, Trump did it with the bump stock ban.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
They're not machine guns, but make them be machine guns.
Yeah. Through hand wavium.
Yep.
So either way, we'll be keeping an eye on that one.
Yes.
And so now we're moving into the segment, and this leaves the interesting statement of the had Erin chose to step out for obvious reasons. I would have forced David to introduce his own segment. Erin traditionally introduces David, so I will give ladies choice on who does this intro.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want David to go blind.
No, I just have to shave my hands every once in a while. Did I pick up what you were putting down?
You did.
Yes.
I mean, you picked up something.
Yeah, Erin was not.
I got my
that
shot.
down.
Erin wouldn't have picked that up in the first place. She's a lady. You have to hand it to her.
So, I don't remember if it was last week or week before. My sense of time is all shot these days. But at one point, I talked about how the state of New York was becoming a point of sale state, and they would also charge $250 for background checks for ammunition. And I figured, well, the best person to do research for that would be the former New Yorkian, David. And so he is here in this segment to explain just how terrible this new law is.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. In this segment, I'll be talking about recent developments in New York. Back in 2013, in the middle of the night, and without the required 3-day comment period, the legislature passed and Governor Cuomo signed the New York SAFE Act, or as most people called it, the Unsafe Act. One of the elements of this law was requiring a background check on the purchase of ammunition. Originally, New York mandated the use of the existing National Instant Check System for this. However, the FBI said no, NICS was only for firearms. Fast forward to July 1st, 2022, when in response to the NYSERPA v. Bruen Supreme Court decision, Governor Kathy Hochul signed the ironically named Concealed Carry Improvement Act into law. Part of this package of legislation regarded building and activating a database for the sale of ammunition. To quote from the appropriate section of this law, There shall be a statewide license and record database specific for ammunition sales, which shall be created and maintained by the Division of State Police, the cost of which shall not be borne by any municipality no later than 30 days upon designating the Division of State Police as the point of contact to perform both firearm and ammunition background checks under federal and state law. Whew, that was one long run-on sentence. The New York State Police had been working on their own version of NICS since the FBI told New York to go pound sand back in 2013. So it didn't take much longer to have this system ready for prime time. As of September 13th of this year, the New York State Police are now the interface between New York gun owners and the FBI for every background check involving firearms, and the holders of the database for checks on ammunition. As is par for the course with New York, the system launched on Wednesday, September 13th, and crashed the same day. No background checks were able to be run on firearms or ammunition until the system was back up. In addition, New York is now charging $9 per firearm check and $2.50 per ammunition check. I can't really say much about the firearm check charge since Tennessee charges $10 for theirs, which I also think is ripe for a constitutional challenge. However, adding $2.50 for even a single 50-round box of .22 rimfire is causing considerable outrage in the state. While slower than the unencumbered NICS checks, the state firearm checks don't seem much worse than the FBI system. The ammunition background check is all New York, and according to several FFLs in the state, it's taking at least 15 to 20 minutes per transaction to run the ammo checks. In some cases, it's taken over 40 minutes. Currently, retailers are required to maintain a database of all transactions involving ammunition. To again quote from the law, any seller of ammunition or dealer in firearms shall keep either an electronic record or data set or an organized collection of structured information or data typically stored electronically in a computer system approved as to form by the Superintendent of State Police. In the record shall be entered at the time of every transaction involving ammunition the date, name, age, occupation, and residence of any person for whom ammunition is received or to whom ammunition is delivered, and the amount, caliber, manufacturer's name, and serial number, or if none, any other distinguishing number or identification mark on such ammunition. They really need to invest in some periods. As one contact said, it's perfect for an imposed purchase limit, either announced as a matter of some future law or unannounced on the governor's whim. Who's to say? 80 rounds a month of 5.56? That's too much. Denied. According to various sources, the law is, as expected, acting as a chilling effect on legal commerce. Yet another regulation, another fee, another additional step. Several smaller gun shops across the state have already said it's not worth it, thrown in the towel, and closed their doors. Other stores are telling their customers to go to Vermont and Pennsylvania to purchase ammunition. However, citizens who live far from one of those states' borders don't have that luxury. There have also been numerous reported instances of customers passing the check to purchase a firearm, but failing the check to purchase ammunition. This is during the exact same transaction. So what does a peaceable citizen of New York do if they receive a denial from this system? Well, the law addresses that as well. Any potential buyer or transferee shall have 30 days to appeal the denial of a background check using a form established by the superintendent. Upon receipt of an appeal, the division shall provide such applicant a reason for denial within 30 days. Upon receipt of the reason for denial, the appellant may appeal to the Attorney General. At least those are reasonably sized sentences. Any guesses how many denials the Attorney General of New York is likely to overturn? I mean for regular citizens. Those with financial or political influence will, as usual, somehow get a pass. One incident was mentioned by a friend who owns a gun shop in New York and involved a gentleman who's had a New York State pistol permit for 52 years, but was nevertheless denied the purchase of ammunition by the New York State ammunition background check system. False denials are apparently quite common. Another part of the Concealed Carry Improvement Act restricts the sale, purchase, and possession of body armor, stating, a person is guilty of the unlawful possession of body armor when not being engaged or employed in an eligible profession they knowingly purchase or take possession of body armor. People engaged or employed in eligible professions currently include police officers, peace officers, active military, federal law enforcement, armored car guard, security guard, firefighter, EMT, firearms dealer, body armor retailer, private investigator, building safety inspector, and code enforcement officer. The following professions are pending their own exemption ruling: journalist, director, producer, crew, etc., process server, nuclear security officer, security or firearm professional, and firearm instructor. Body armor is defined in the law as follows.
For the purposes of this section, body armor means any product that is a personal protective body covering intended to protect against gunfire, regardless of whether such product is to be worn alone or is sold as a complement to another product or garment, potentially leading to someone getting harassed or arrested for having a plate carrier but no plates. As several people have said over the years, the push to ban body armor tells you everything you need to know about their movement. It has nothing to do with safety and everything to do with making you defenseless. Or, more directly, laws that restrict the wearing of body armor are saying someday the state might want to kill you and we can't have you making it harder for them. This legislation did a number of other things to expand the oppression on New York State residents, but I can only cover so much before I risk a migraine. So that's the current situation in the appropriately named Empire State. As I mentioned, I still have friends and family there, and my heart goes out to them as well as all the other innocent victims. For those who are looking at the situation from the outside, please don't tell them to just vote the tyrants out or move to a free state. It's never that simple by any means. One thing we can all do is make a donation to the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association to help fund the NYSERDA vs. Bruen 2 lawsuit that's already started moving. As a final note, keep a close eye on the legislatures in your own states as well. None of them can be trusted to protect our rights, and without proper oversight, they can cause untold harm.
Mr. President, have you ever been present at a meeting of the New York legislature? They speak very fast and very loud, and nobody listens to anybody else.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Erin or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor to the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brenna Bach and David Bach. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
So one thing that I want to point out before we get into the meat of the segment, because I know once you boys start going, I'm not going to be able to get a word in edgewise. I wanted to comment about the body armor law. And it wasn't addressed, but what I heard was they have now made it illegal for children to have bulletproof backpacks.
You are correct.
Mhm.
They are not an exempted class under the law.
And I'm guessing they didn't intend to exclude them. But much like the Unsafe Act, which didn't have a law enforcement provision, well, we must do something. This is something, ergo we must do it.
Yeah. But if you remember, the list of the currently eligible professions, law enforcement, first responders, etc., and it's only the professions that are currently pending that includes things like firearm instructor, or my personal favorite, nuclear security officer.
Yeah, I thought that was strange. Another thing I thought
How did they leave that one out?
Another thing that I thought was strange was, like, okay, journalists are allowed to have body armor. I mean, I can kind of see some of that, especially if they're on the crime beat, but one of the pending ones were writers and directors, and what?
Journalist, director, producer, crew, etc. Yeah.
In other words,
they're not allowed. They're not allowed yet.
Yeah. In other words, we want Hollywood to understand that we're on their side, and we want them to keep making movies and TV shows in our city.
Yes. Yeah. So if they're doing whatever the latest version of one of the New York City cop shows, every single member of that cast and crew can be wearing a vest.
Mm-hmm.
But the extras, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I thought was particularly chilling when I was doing research on this was the actual definition of body armor.
Yeah, you mentioned that just a plate carrier without any armor in it is still prohibited.
Potentially. It's a gray area because it says any product that is a personal protective body covering intended to protect against gunfire, regardless of whether such product is to be worn alone or is sold as a component to another product or garment. Could that be interpreted to be the plate carrier without plates? I mean, technically, it's not intended to protect against gunfire as is, but it is a component to another product. You know, you're not just going to duct tape the plate to your shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
Right.
could. But, so it's another one of those. We're going to make this vague enough so that if we really want to jack you up, we can jack you up. If one of the earlier versions of the legislation actually limited the body armor ban to in commission of a crime.
And I'm fine
So-
with that.
Yeah. And I don't think anyone had any issues with that. It was, if you've got body armor and you're going about your business and doing whatever and not breaking the law, you're fine. But as soon as you go to rob that bodega, you now have an extra charge because you were wearing body armor. But it's New York, so it's better to throw 18 million people under the bus to prevent the 5 from doing something bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, there's two factors that I found were very chilling in this. Is that actually I wasn't quite sure about this. Is the NICS check for ammo, is that like very similar to how we do it for firearms? If you're buying 5 guns, it's 1 NICS. If you're buying 1 gun, it's 1 NICS.
Correct.
If you were to be buying cases of ammo or
It's per transaction.
Yeah. So
that's going to increase the bulk buying, which will be a red flag. And I use that term specifically.
Yeah, yep, exactly. We've heard talks on, like, specifically surrounding the Aurora, Colorado, and the suing of Lucky Gunner. Is, oh my goodness, people buying huge sums of ammunition is clearly what are these people doing? And this, someone who just bought several thousand rounds of 45 ACP.
Yeah. Well, not only that,
really good deal.
Yeah, but not only that, but we've seen the news stories where the person had 3 firearms and 500 rounds of 22. Like, 22 is sold in 500 round bricks because that's a day at the range.
And at least around here, there are shops that don't sell firearms, but do sell ammo.
Oh yeah,
I can think of.
I think our local Ace Hardware.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're going to have to deal with keeping up with and doing the background checks, well, obviously they're going to stop selling because it just doesn't make sense anymore. And also,
here in Massachusetts, there is no such thing as a shop that sells ammunition that also doesn't sell firearms.
Right.
Because the licensing is so complicated. Why would they just do the one?
And also, there's been, I can't count the number of times that I've been in a shop and gone, yeah, I think I'll pick up a box of 22 or 9mm or whatever. Which I probably wouldn't have if it was, and then I've got to fill out paperwork and I'll deal with it later. And
remember from my segment, the reports that I was getting from the gun shop owners and employees was 15 to 20 minutes was a good response time.
Oh yeah, and I was going to say, every one of us and every gun owner, if you've bought multiple firearms, you've had one of those background checks take 20, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever. And if it hasn't happened to you, you probably know somebody who has had the background check just do the whole, it's like, nope, you're delayed for days until it,
for reasons.
For reasons, and I know a gentleman who, when he stopped by the gun shop to pick up his machine gun because the paperwork had finally gone through, he decided, and I'll go ahead and buy this Ruger 10/22, and that background check was delayed on the 22 pistol, as at the same time he was picking up a machine gun.
Yeah. And this has been a known issue with NICS since its inception. And New York, well, you know the story about the state of Nevada the whorehouse in the state of Nevada that was seized for tax payment issues by the federal government, and then it wound up going out of business?
Yes.
The Mustang
New
Ranch,
York
I
would
believe.
do that.
Yeah, Mustang Ranch.
Yeah. New York would do that too. I mean, the fact that the state police had been working on this database from 2013, and the day it goes online, it crashes.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all.
No, that doesn't surprise me at all either. But since I put the article together, I heard from some other people I reached out to, it crashes about once a week, or once or twice a week, and it's only been up for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that
may be growing pains. That actually
happens a lot, where you will running a computer database that's dealing with automated queries. You will run into issues when you're starting to accept hundreds of queries or thousands of queries that you wouldn't see when you're running 10.
Yeah, but the crash on the first day was before it had actually started receiving checks.
Oh dear.
It was, okay, we're going live, and we crashed. So it wasn't that, okay, they had tested it with 100 queries in an hour. They hadn't expected 1,000 queries an hour. It wasn't anything like that. It was, we're rolling this out from the testing server to the production server, and it crashed.
Nice.
Yeah. But there was the incident that was reported in my segment about the guy who had a pistol permit in New York for over 50 years and was denied on the ammunition background check.
Right, yeah.
One of the guys said that they were getting, for every 5 checks, they were getting 4 false denials. And I have a feeling that that's a feature, not a bug.
Right. Well, I mean, they have to side on the side of caution, because reasons.
Does your tongue hurt biting it that hard?
Yeah. But
I mean, like I said, I feel bad for the folks that are still there that are living under this.
Yeah, and even if it is one of the quick ones that's only 15 minutes long,
still,
if I'm at the shop with my wife, she's not gonna want to hang around. For 15 minutes so that I can buy a box of 22.
I mean, back when we lived up in New York and my wife would drag me to Walmart for craft supplies, I would have us swing through the sporting goods section and pick up a brick of 22. Back when it was like $15, $16 a brick.
Right.
And now it might take 10 minutes to find someone to come to the sporting goods department to open a case.
But that's different.
Walmart.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't pick on Walmart. That's any large store with different departments.
Walmart and the sporting goods section in particular seems to be especially bad in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I also had that same issue with, I think it was Best Buy and software.
Oh, you found employees at Best Buy. Good job.
I went up to the service desk, but it was literally, okay, once we find the person, here's the ammo, here's my money, here's the ammo, we're gone.
Mm-hmm.
As it should be.
Right.
But I'm not sure how Nice Harper versus Bruen 2 is going to attack this particular legislation, because I don't think Nice Harper versus Bruen the first, I don't think they had any issue with things like Massachusetts firearms owners card for buying ammunition. So would they have an issue with what New York is doing with ammunition purchases? Because they've already said background checks are okay. I can hope that as time goes on, the system gets more efficient and runs smoother and faster, but I lived in New York. I worked with New York state agencies. I don't expect that to happen. Now, there are some things I found out afterwards, some exemptions, that I just wanted to mention one of, which is there is such a thing as an organizational keeper of ammunition. So anyone acting on behalf of an organization that runs and controls a shooting range, hunting club, training program, safety program, or competition club where that organization provides ammunition for use on that range and not for retail purposes can register as an organizational keeper of ammunition. And then when they are distributing that ammunition, there would not be a background check. So, something like 4-H is doing their rifle resection. They would order the ammunition on their FFL, or it would be donated by an FFL in many cases, and that would be the end of that. They wouldn't have to check the parents of the kids coming to do their riflery.
Right.
So that's something, and I would not be surprised to see people trying to get around that by organizing. Okay, your range membership fee is going up $50 a year, but it now includes 5 boxes of ammunition. You're not buying the ammunition; we are distributing it to you for use on our range.
The free market interprets regulation as damage and routes around it.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, I'm starting to feel my blood pressure getting to a certain point, so I'm going to stop. Weird, you still awake?
Now I am.
Okay. Stop counting duckies.
Okay. All right. So moving on to the final segment of the show, we have if you are a hand loader like David and I.
Hello.
You'll often see in the recipe a projected muzzle velocity for what you're picking out. But how do you verify that number? Your firearm might be different. The barrel length might be a little bit different. The numbers might be off. Plus, also you can tell how consistent your loads are.
Yep.
What tool would you use? Simple, chronographs. And Heinrich from Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns has a segment for us on just this.
Hi, this is Heinrich from Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns. I'm stopping by to talk about an essential piece of reloading instrumentation, the chronograph. Now, this is a device that we use to accurately measure the velocity of a projectile. Now, this is important because having a consistent muzzle velocity is a good indicator that your quality control on hand-loaded ammunition is up to spec. And it's also really important to know if you're doing precision shooting for long range, because the muzzle velocity is a very important variable to enter into your ballistic calculators. The first chronographs were things like ballistic pendulums, where a bullet would be fired into it and how far the pendulum swung would be worked out with some physics and math to figure out the velocity. Other early chronographs were spinning paper discs mounted on an axle, and with knowing how fast the axle was spinning and doing some math, you could figure out from the angle that the bullet punched through the paper discs what speed it was going. But with modern electronics, we've got much easier chronographs to use. The most common one is the light curtain chronograph, which you can go to almost any sporting goods store and pick up. And this is just a pair of infrared sensors and that will look to see the shadow of a bullet passing across them. Better ones will have an infrared light bar that is shining towards the sensor so that they're not as sensitive to the light conditions that you're in. And when you set these up downrange and shoot your bullet across the top of them, and as it passes between the light bar and the sensor, it causes a shadow and starts the timer counting, and when it goes through the second sensor, the timer stops, and because the chronograph knows how far apart those are, and it knows very accurately how long it took, it can calculate how fast that bullet was going. Now, these are not very expensive. I think under $200. They are pretty accurate. You do have to go down range to be able to set them up, so if you're on a public range, they can be less convenient. And being down range, they are vulnerable to getting hit. Ask Matthew from Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns about how many of my chronographs he has blown apart. But They're also somewhat sensitive to the light conditions. If it's an especially sunny day, the sunlight can wash out the sensor, so you may have trouble on certain days getting accurate readings, but they work pretty well. A newer chronograph that's come around is the MagnetoSpeed magnetic chronograph, which is a sensor device which is clamped to the barrel, and you set it so that there is a very specific gap between the edge of the bore and the top of the sensor bar, and when you shoot, the bullet leaves the muzzle, it passes over the first magnetic sensor, which, having a metallic projectile pass by, distorts the magnetic field and causes a start signal. And when it goes past the second magnetic sensor, it will distort the field again and cause a stop signal. And the electronics will calculate out how fast the bullet went down the length of that sensor bar. Now, this one is a little more expensive than the light curtain chronographs, but you don't have to worry about light conditions. You don't have to worry about going down range. You do have to have a round barrel to mount this on, or you have to have Picatinny rail near your muzzle. So if you're trying to mount onto something with a suppressor, it may be kind of tough to do. You can't mount it onto some pistols. So there's trade-offs to it, but it is a very good, accurate, fairly easy to use chronograph. Now, the third modern chronograph, which is not as common because it's kind of expensive, is the Doppler radar. Now, the most common one that I've seen is the lab radar, and it is a square radar antenna with built-in control circuits that you set up on a tripod next to your shooting position and aim downrange at your target, and it has microphones that will pick up the muzzle blast of your shot and start sending out radar pulses and getting a return off of the bullet as it goes downrange. Now, this is cool because it will actually take a velocity reading every couple yards from whatever position it's at to about 200 yards downrange, depending on your bullet geometry. So you can actually get a graph of your velocity drop off, or your velocity change over time, which can be really handy when you're doing hand loading, or if you want to verify your ballistic calculator. Now, this does depend on the diameter and base geometry of your bullet, how good of a return to the radar you get. So it can be a little bit picky about bullet shape and size, and you have to get it set properly that it picks up the muzzle blast to start the recording. So I haven't gotten to play with one myself, but talking to Matt, who has, he had a little bit of trouble getting it to start recording every time, but when it did record, it was giving good data. Now, that's the most expensive of the easily obtainable chronographs, and you can go with consumer grade, which are not so expensive and plenty good for the average reloader or target shooter, and you can spend as much money as you want for however much accuracy you think that you need. So there are light curtain chronographs that are very expensive, but come with lots of certifications of how accurate they are. So you'll want to look and see what your balance of accuracy versus cost is. But when you want to go and get serious about getting data on your shooting, they're super handy to have.
So, David, you've got a chronograph, right?
Sort of, because Heinrich left out one of the most important points about using a chronograph to test your reloads. Don't shoot it.
Oh no!
He said, "Don't shoot it."
I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
You
No
caught
way.
your crony
He
though.
specifically didn't shoot it. He threw Matt under the bus, saying that Matt shot
yes.
Yeah, I was testing my AR-10 and I forgot to compensate for the height over bore of the scope.
it.
Oof.
And amazingly, the chronograph still works enough. The first digit on the screen doesn't display. But if I'm off by 1,000 feet per second, I think I would notice.
I would
Right.
consider that a ringing endorsement of a chronograph. It took a bullet and it still works.
It took a 30 caliber. It took a 308 at close range.
Okay, I need to know what brand this is.
I'll look it up for you.
Okay.
I got it used at an auction estate sale type thing. And I was like, oh yeah, now that I'm loading for rifle, I should probably pull out the chronograph. And I set it up and did all that stuff. And through the scope, I had plenty of room. And took the first shot and the chronograph fell over. And I'm like, well, that's odd. And I go to pick it up and, oh. Yeah, if I had a video going recording my process, I would have put it up on YouTube with a "Don't do this" warning. But yeah,
Yeah, height over bore has been the doom of many a chronograph and car hood and all sorts of other things.
Windows.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the car hood is a good one.
There's also the
Yeah.
guy who did that to his roof. He was in the bed of his pickup truck, and he let off a round, and it went in the roof and out the windshield.
Oh, that's expensive.
Yeah. There was actually, I think it was up in Alaska, there was a law enforcement interaction, and the officer had an M16 A1 or A2, but a carry handle AR with a scope mounted on top of the carry handle. And he was up on a roof and went to take a shot, was about to take a shot at the criminal when he took a moment to check and realized that his muzzle was not clearing the peak.
Yeah, those carry handle uppers with optics on them. Yeah, the height over bore can be measured in furlongs.
Yeah, which is why for one of my ARs, I've got a red dot on a gooseneck attached to the carry handle.
Mm-hmm. And this wasn't Heinrich didn't include it in his show notes, but I threw it in. I found a really great video of a guy doing a review of two of the Doppler systems and the magnetic chronograph or the whatever the fancy alien bayonet
Yes.
one. And
I've thought about actually getting one of the ones that straps to the barrel.
yeah, that they look super interesting, and Matt and Heinrich are swearing by theirs. Obviously,
Not only that, but the likelihood of shooting it is considerably reduced.
yeah,
Yes.
and the Doppler one is very, very interesting with all the data that it gets, but they are spendy, so yeah, you may not have it. But I will also note that there are clearly, David, you didn't have that thing quite, but there are ones where they put the brains a little bit away from where the gates are for the optical chronographs.
Yeah.
So and so therefore your the part that you end up shooting is the relatively inexpensive part.
Yes.
It was actually
Yeah.
like I had I have a pair of wireless earbuds and I was out mowing my lawn and I had already thought, like, it's one of those instances of I remember, cutting towards myself and saying, yeah, I really should be cutting towards myself. And then next thing you know, I'm in the emergency room getting sewn back up. And,
weird.
Or the instance of I really shouldn't have the charging case for these earbuds in my pocket while I'm out mowing the lawn. Yeah, I don't know where that went off to, but thankfully the case itself is not where where all the smarts are, and so the case was like, I was like, oh crap, now I can't use my earbuds anymore, and these are like $200, and then but the case is $25. Oh, okay, I can replace that.
But yeah, definitely if you're using a chronograph, not shooting it is a very good idea.
It's highly recommended.
It helps. It also really screws up the reading on that shot.
I mean,
priorities.
In my defense, it was the first shot, so it's not like I had a series.
And I've been helping a buddy out, and they've asked me to shoot through their chronograph, and I was sweating bullets to making sure that I wasn't that guy.
Yeah. I think I'll have to go and take a look in the basement. I think it might be the by Pro Chrono. I think that might be the one. It's an older unit, so it's not one of the current ones.
But it checks out.
It looks right. I took a look at the picture of that particular brand on the Brownells website, and it looks very much like the one that I have.
I don't know who gave me the sensible chuckle, but thank you.
It was me, and I posted the GIF on there. Although I like this one. It's an older meme, but it checks out. Shall I downvote it?
No, let it be. As you wish, my lord. Upvote it.
I
have not seen that version.
Let's get out of here. Oh, that's my cue. I get out of here.
Oh, weird.
It's that time of night.
Yes, it is. All right, it is that time of night.
For those of us on colonial time, it's almost that time of morning.
Yes. Thanks to each and every one of our listeners, and a very special
sauce.
Very special sauce all over our listeners.
Tyler, your sex tape.
In special sauce, and it makes them that much more delectable.
Oh, listeners, I'm so sorry we jizzed on you.
Yeah.
Thanks to each and every one of our listeners, and a very special thanks to all our supporters on Patreon. If you're a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like the hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends both online and off. I am fading. Wow.
I got a blog. It's called WeirDWorld.com, and you can also hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at Linktree/Erin Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Erin Paulette, all one word.
And David, you already gave all your credentials at the end of your segment, so Oddball.
I'm excused.
You can find me hanging out at the Facebook Assorted Calibers podcast Facebook group and at gunscarstech.com, and check out my wife's new podcast called Meowcore, favorite podcast app.
I was hoping you were going to do that.
What is your wife's new podcast about, Oddball?
She and a friend of hers are her friend is introducing her to metal bands, and she's introducing her friend to books and talking about her cats.
Well, your cats too.
Well, yes.
Your community cats.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music. Do you have it tonight, Erin?
I mean, I'm turning into a pumpkin. I don't know. Weird. What kind of gourd are you?
That is such a question.
I'm the butternut squash that needs to chill the frig out.
Yes, you are. David, what are you?
I one of those oddly shaped gourds that they make decorative items out. I don't know what kind of gourd that is.
Turban squash?
Sure. It was just Rosh Hashanah when I made a turban challah, so I'll be a turban squash.
And how about you, Oddball?
And randomly, I'm apparently a Mexican jumping bean because I'm hyper for some reason.
That's not a gourd.
I don't care.
All right, our vegetable nomenclature is assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.